Good morning. I'm so glad you could join me here at Red Pine Quilt Shop in Detroit Lakes, Minnesota. I'm Connie. I've been playing in my stash recently, and I really mean playing. And I thought of some things I might share with you and see if you want to have some fun playing with your fabric at home. Choosing color combinations can sometimes be tricky. I like to use the selvage edge with the little color dots. And I look at this one and I notice the different colors. This was from my stash at home. I picked a pink that went with the red, leaned into that dark green, and this almost neutral color and a light blue. I probably would not have chosen these colors if I didn't have this selvage strip to kind of give me a little inspiration. I don't know if you've done this before, but it can be really fun. Here's one. It was a panel that was gifted to me. Lots of colors. Makes it a little harder probably. But I noticed a neutral here is real similar to a couple of these. I've got this soft peachy pink. Have to have something that's a little dramatic. There's number 3, that deep red. The yellow with some white in it, and this green. Not a perfect match, but certainly kind of fun. I wouldn't have chosen these colors, but these tapes with the selvage strip can be really fun to play with. So that's the first thing I've been playing with, is picking colors out of my stash. And since it's my stash, I can be a little wacky and pick something out of the ordinary. The other thing that I've been working with are these squares. I cut lots of 2.5-inch squares. Now you see my colors here would be the dark blue to purple, black, and then I've got yellow, orange into the red and pink. So the first thing that I've done is to actually plan it. That's my first suggestion for you. So I've set out some colors. I pick the ones that I like, move them around a little bit if I think that they need a little more variety. So here would just be one where I'm planning the colors, I'm looking at it, I'm thinking about not having too many colors that are similar or patterns that are too similar next to each other. My second thing that I'm going to challenge you to do is a spontaneous choice. Now, spontaneous means that you can see the pieces, but you just sort of pick them and sew. And seriously, this is such a fun, relaxing way to sew. So if I'm going to be spontaneous here, I'm just going to pick some. I'm not overly thinking about it. And you notice that sometimes I end up with some colors that are pretty similar. But in the overall pattern, I think it's quite pleasing. So this is spontaneous. So far we've done the planned piecing. Spontaneous means I see the pieces and a little selection, but not entirely. And the last one is where it gets really fun, and that's the random choice. Now for random, I really mean random. So I started this one. And random, whatever comes out of the bag is going to go right here. I can't see, a little bit like drawing a prize, right? There's the first one. And I'm just going to put them in there. Here's the next one. And again, this is random, and if you don't like it, you can always change it. I mean, it's not like it's a rule, but it will push you, and just see how comfortable you are with different patterns and colors together and see what happens. So this would be my next random choices. And you see I do have some repeats, got some solids together, but it can be very interesting to do that. So plan it, spontaneous, where you see what's happening, and random, where whatever comes out of the bag is what you sew. I think you'd be really surprised at how fun it is to sew when you're just sewing and you're not thinking too much about your colors and your fabrics and where they're placed. And it's kind of a surprise when it's done. I would like to talk a little bit about the way that I'm piecing these. So what I've done here is I've sewed across, and you see they're connected. Once they're pressed, I would press this row this way, opposite directions. These seams practically leap together. It's almost like it's a magnet, and it ends up being a really easy, very successful way to sew these things. Let me show you how you start, because the start might be the trick. When I'm starting, I lay out the pieces. And then I would just sew here, continue sewing. The nice thing about this is I'm matching up my seam and the edges. The squares become very uniform. And once they're sewn like that, I don't clip. They're all hooked up. The next one, I'm going to push it open like this, and I would start right there. And you see this one, they were open, and I sewed this on. I didn't trim, and they're all connected. My next row would be here, and you could see where this could become very automatic, listen to a book kind of sewing. I'm going to sew this first one here, and sew this one, and just down like this until I have my 5x5 square. Now this will work for small squares. It'll work for a baby quilt. If you're doing an entire quilt, I would recommend maybe sewing them together like this with 3-4 rows so that you don't have the whole quilt. It gets pretty bulky. But again, let me just show you. You're going to press these seams one way and then the other, and just sew them together, and they nest. I've been very happy with how accurate these corners are with this method. I do not recommend using it with anything that has a diagonal seam in it, like a half square triangle. There's a lot of stretch in that, and this can pull and kind of stretch and pull it out of your order. So today I'm asking you, have some fun in your stash. Look through those fabrics. Don't just organize them, play with them. Think about different colors that you might use. Take some inspiration from selvages. If you're making a scrappy quilt, go ahead and you can plan. You can be spontaneous and look at what it is you're making, or you can be totally random and just draw it out of a bag. Now, if you're not feeling brave about the totally random part, look at this quilt. You could use low volumes and be totally random with those in the back, if that would be a comfortable place for you to start. Have some fun sewing and see what you find in your stash. Oh, before I forget, of course, sewing is always more fun if you have a new needle in your machine and if your rotary blade is sharp and ready to go. Just don't skimp on those things. So thank you.